Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Earning Curve. The Earning Curve is a new platform in webinars and different from other webinars you may have attended in the past. We let all of you, the audience, drive the panel. My name is Marianne Biangardi, and I'm the head of business development at Schmersahl, Treloar and Company. Today's topic is effectively incorporating digital media into your sales process. We will be discussing the different digital media assets which can reinforce your messaging and sales discovery. These assets will help you to improve your sales process. Since all of you drive the panel, we need you to start sending us your questions. Go ahead and find the chat that's a thought bubble icon at the bottom of your screen. Type your questions in there and we will get them answered. Let's go ahead and get started with introductions. Today, our anchor panelist is Ryan Bretsch. Ryan is the Vice President of Sales Enablement at Spoke Marketing. Ryan is also the founder and creator of the Earning Curve, which is a fantastic platform. We all know we love this. Some fun facts about Ryan. Ryan is an outdoors enthusiast. He enjoys hiking, camping, and cooking. And every time I see all his pictures on Facebook, I'm like, why was I not invited for dinner? This looks amazing. He also enjoys spending time with his two sons and his wife, Jennifer. Next up, we have Jennifer Bardot. Jennifer is the VP at Enterprise Bank. Jennifer has a gift in connecting people. She's very strategic in making connections that make sense. A fun fact about Jennifer is a nationally recognized, internationally best-selling author. She just co-wrote the book Grit, Owning Your Grit, 40 Women's Stories of Harnessing the Power of Growth, Resilience, Intention, and Tenacity. It's a great book. John Knicely is up next. John is the CEO and founder of Vita Lux and Agency. John is an Emmy Award and Murrow Award-winning journalist who helps businesses drive transformation through video storytelling. John has 17 years as a news anchor and reporter in major television markets, including St. Louis on KMOV News 4. Couple of fun facts about John. John can do a backflip on a wakeboard. He's flown with the Blue Angels and he loves to sing karaoke. Hazel Oliver is up next. Hazel is the founder and CEO of Hazel Oliver Creative. Hazel is a British native and veteran of the video industry. She has spent the last decade finding her focus behind the lens of her own personalized production company. Hailing from England, Hazel enjoys British comedy, beans on toast, and her trips back home, and eating her weight in fish and chips. And she's never met a dog she didn't like. Her dog, Ham, is actually on the company's board of directors. John Launius is up next. John is the president of Vidzu Media. John has an extensive background in creating media content for both the public and private sector. John and his team at Vidzu Media focus on media solutions for corporations, the government, as well as non-for-profits and cultural art institutions. John is also a historical speaker and author, and he enjoys research writing and lecturing about the 19th and 20th centuries in America. He has a new book out, The Life and Times of Missouri's Charles Parsons Between Art and War. Before we open it up to your questions, I want to ask Ryan a starter question as he's the lead panelist. After Ryan responds, I would love for the other panelists to add their comments as well if they wish. Ryan, so what are some of the types of digital media available to sales professionals beyond the typical PowerPoint sales presentations? What should be considered when using different types of media? Oh,
Ryan, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Well, there's a start for you. So thank you, Marianne. Appreciate the question. I was just noting as the founder of the Earning Curve, I guess that's one way to guarantee that you're going to be an expert panelist on it, right? So it's a very good question. So here's maybe a couple of things to consider. These are things that I really like that can be incorporated into the sales process. So one of those things is infographics. And infographics are nice because they take the complex, such as when you're trying to outline a process, or data comparison or something along those lines. And it really, makes it easy to understand. You have engaging, visuals that are there to basically communicate complex concepts. Sell sheets are another one. Sell sheets are very versatile. That's another thing that I like about these, is that they're usually 1 or 2 pages about communicating the value that your company brings to an organization, and they can be used at different stages of the sales cycle. We have a number of people that are on our panel today that are going to be talking about sales video. And so sales video is really nice because the message is always perfectly expressed, and it's also consistently congruent with the company's message at all times. One that I'll talk about a little bit more where it's relevant is discovery diagnostics. And discovery diagnostics, at least in a digital format, is, it's a unique form of collateral because it actually helps, engage, the discovery portion of your sales process. And then, of course, I'm sure today we'll talk a little bit about how you can incorporate the website. The website is not just for lead generation, it's also for sales conversion. So, in the second part of the question, 3 things is just understand where to use digital media, to use sales collateral, where it's going to be most effective. So really understand what stages of the sales cycle different types of digital media are going to be most effective in. Plan that use of collateral within the sales cycle, to make sure that each piece of collateral that you're using has maximum impact. And then the final thing is we've been stressing the word digital media, right? So things like sales sheets, for instance, those have typically been done in paper. But there's also ways to turn the paper collateral into digital media and to use it to far greater effect.
Thank you, Ryan. Does anyone else want to add to that?
I think so. I could dive in, of course, about video all day long, but one thing I think is really interesting right now for the future is virtual reality and 360 video, and utilizing that for the sales process. I think is really interesting because you can give someone a headset, or you can even give them, mail them a cardboard thing and give them a video on your phone to use. And you kind of get to see them explore the video how they want to explore it. So that's kind of like your discovery. So you can learn from them where they take their virtual reality video. Maybe it's a tour of your facility, whatever it is, and you see what they're interested in without actually having to ask them. And I think that's like specifically for one kind of video, I find that really interesting right now.
I love Hazel's contribution in talking about VR. We've taken that, but we've also taken it to the level of choose your own adventure. We have an adventure on our website called blockofwood.com, where basically we take people through choices. And so we literally had to film twice. If they make choice A, they go this direction. If they make choice B, that direction. And how we apply that to our sales process is actually creating that as a buyer's journey. So when we have those conversations with our clients, it's like, does a choose your own adventure video serve you in the sense of guiding your particular clients or your customers in a certain direction?
Yeah, I'll jump in just with the video storytelling aspect too, which several of these panelists can speak to in an expert fashion. But just looking at what part of the question you're trying to answer in the sales process or objection to overcome, you can create a video that can speak to that and cover that objection even before it gets raised. So as you strategically look at your sales process, that video can be very specific to a specific issue. So a lot of people think of videos and they think of an overall branding video that tells who we are and who we help. But you can get really specific with the messaging per part of your sales process, and that can be really effective.
Thank you, John. We do have a question here in chat. When creating digital sales collateral, who should be involved in the process and what should marketing and sales roles be? Ryan, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that one. Well, there's a lot of talk about, the collaboration between marketing and sales right now. And and I think that kind of informs the answer a little bit is both parties actually really should be involved in the process. The sales department, the sales leaders have to communicate, what is it that they want from the collateral, what is it that they want specifically for the collateral to accomplish, and and then how does that collateral advance things to the next stage of the sales process. So not everything is about close, right? A successful sales process is where you're meaningfully advancing from one stage to the next in the sales process itself, and then having that sales process aligned to the customer's buying journey. So sales is really responsible for the content, in my opinion, on that. They have to be very clear in communicating to marketing, what they want. And marketing's role then in that is to make that visually engaging and to basically aid in telling a story. Like, I tell stories in very technical terms, right? I need an editor. I need someone coming behind me to take that story and bring it to life. So that would be my thoughts on that.
I think this is I think it's a great question, because if you notice with creatives, like when you heard all of our introductions, everyone on this panel is extremely diverse. I mean, if we look at John Knicely, for example, I mean, good golly, put the guy anywhere, And so what I notice is that when you're working with creatives, everybody wants to be involved. And when that happens, people are in action, but not necessarily listening. So how I interpret this question is it really depends on who's going to make the most contribution to the ask at hand. And then kind of organically or naturally, who on the team will start to gravitate toward that. Sure, if the client wants the sales executive present, great. But when does the creative director step in? When do they step out? When does the producer step in? So I think it's really a function of listening to really find the best solution.
Yeah, and I'll just jump in with I think the importance of that collaboration between sales and marketing. Your salespeople deal with the customers, possibly the closest, right? They're the ones who are learning their story through discovery and learning what they need and what's important to them. And so to have that salesperson's input to help craft the message with the creatives, that's an important voice to be heard. And then, the marketing teams themselves have their own expertise in how to share a message and help make sure everything's on brand. And so that collaboration is key, as has been pointed out.
Yeah, and I might add to that too is just looking at it through the lens of the customer. Is there's some belief that's out there that marketing is actually replacing sales as the medium of of how to engage and convert a customer. I don't believe in that line of reasoning at all. I do understand why it exists, and that's because if you think about going out and buying a car, even 10 15 years ago, it meant loading up the family, driving to the dealership, and then the dealership walking you through their sales process, them telling you how you should buy a car. And if you look at how you buy a car today, you buy it on your terms, right? You don't, you're informed. There's so much information that's out available on the web that you can come fully informed about the car that you want to buy, and you can also dictate how the that process flows. But if you haven't noticed, is you still have a salesperson there to engage. There still has to be that middle sales professional that's there to help guide especially in more complex sales, because, customers research a lot of things on the web. That doesn't mean what they research is correct. And they still have to navigate through, the thing that's marketing. When you think marketing, that's a targeted message. And you still have to go through the process of discerning, is whether the product's value is going to meet, the things that I want to accomplish, as a customer on that. So that would be the other comment that, that I would say supports, sales and marketing, really working together. But it also starts with an understanding that, that marketing and sales more than ever contribute to the sales process and contribute to the customer's buying journey.
And if I could just add from the sales professional standpoint, I think the sales professional's role is just to really be a guided advocate to make sure that the buyer is going down the road and the journey that they're trying to get to. So we kind of guide them along that journey with the marketing materials by not wasting time and asking the right questions to make sure they're going down that journey effectively.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jennifer. Definitely.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys both brought that up too, because I find a lot of times with people I work with, marketing and sales are still so split. And that's really difficult from a creative side, because really for any video, you really need input from both. And it's really nice to see when, sales professionals are speaking about this and have insight on, yes, like I feel like more than ever, marketing and sales are on the same road together, instead of like two different highways that are going the same direction, that there's, an on-ramp and an off-ramp, and you switch, like, here's the client, here's this. It's very much like you guys are working more together than ever in every aspect.
Also another great point.
You're on mute, Marianne.
Darn it. Thank you. Okay, how can I make my digital sales media more interesting and differentiate my services from my competitors? What are new and creative ways out there that I can support my selling efforts? Who would like to start?
Well, I'll just jump in with, I'd really like to hear more about the VR piece that was mentioned, and I thought that was really interesting, because it doesn't get any more new or creative than that.
I can jump into that, but specifically with how to make, your sales process more interesting than a competitor and stuff. Is that the question, Marianne? Yeah. So I think you have to tell your own story. No one can tell your story like of your company other than you. So your competitor isn't you, and you just have to show that, whether that be through testimonials of customers that, love you and that kind of thing, or or a VR tour of your facility, right? So let's say that you have, I don't know manufacturing, but let's say you have the biggest factory in the world or something. And I went to film school, guys. And so, and you really want to utilize that or showcase that, or just the differences that way. I think it's really interesting. I don't know. I just think VR is interesting in a lot of different ways. I've used it in multiple different ways for different things. And even just an interview, like, hey, doing a client testimonial video and having a 360 camera in the background. So your potential customer can actually just look at the room and say, oh, like, this person's very similar to me in a lot of ways. Not only are they, they're talking about how they really like your services, but they're also like, hey, in the background, that's their bookshelf and they like sci-fi. I like sci-fi too. I don't know, even that kind of like fun stuff that personalizes an experience, I think is really interesting. And then also what John was saying about choose your own adventure. I mean, I've seen that video and it's amazing. And it's such a cool thing. So you can really understand how people are making choices too, which I find really interesting.
So John, I think you have to tell us a little bit more about it.
Well, I think, what came to mind when Hazel was sharing is the quote from David Bowie, when he talked about how, you're at the edge of creativity when your feet are just touching the water when you're floating. And, oftentimes I know we've all had this experience, whether on the panel or you're watching this, is that, there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear-based thinking in everything that we do, because everything we do for the most part now is so high stakes. Like, people don't want to make mistakes. So what's wonderful now about the myriad of social media platforms, if you want to have a VR experience in social, you can have that now. Hazel talked about how you can send the cardboard box, and we've done that before for many of our Fortune 100 clients who have the money to afford that. But it's like you can create these things safely in a space that allows you to really engage in the fear that people have. And I for us, that's really the kind of the difference, is that giving people the space to be able to identify like what's fearful to them. Because right now there's a lot of stuff that's on trend that some parts of the population are scared of seeing change in that. And so how do you mitigate that? How do you create content around that? And giving yourself permission to have those conversations where you embrace fear opens up whole new possibilities, whether it's VR, because for some people, wait a minute, I got to put my head inside this thing and I gotta go into this digital world. That's scary for people. Now, for some of us, it's like, how is that scary? But for some it is. So there you go. Fear.
Yeah, fear. All right. Well, I'll jump in with another piece. And I think I'm going to take one step back to hopefully take 2 steps forward here. Is that in sales, what was commonly recognized as the most important piece of sales was the close, right? So when you go into the 80s, the 90s, the early aughts, everything was always about how to close more effectively. And then, research has been done, especially around, the book Spin Selling. If everybody hasn't, heard of that, that's one that you might want to check out. Is that close is no longer the most important thing in sales. It's discovery. So, the importance of being able to ask questions in a progressive way that gets, both you as the sales professional and the client to meaningful answers that resonate with the customer's buying journey is of paramount in importance and import. So one thing that I'll talk about is, that digital media is discovery diagnostics, which I told you I would talk about when it became appropriate to do so. It sounds like now's the time. So discovery diagnostics is kind of, in a way, it's a sell sheet, but it's actually focused to discovery. And what it does is it gives the prospect the ability to self-audit along their customer buying journey, which makes the discovery process for the salespeople not just more impactful, but also makes it more efficient as well, and reduces cost of sale, because instead of that time that you're taking to work with the customer, to have dialogue and meetings and everybody attending that meeting and the cost of doing that, the customer can simply self-audit, give you in a stress-free way, and give you the answers to the questions that are beneficial to both of you, and help you collaborate to find the best possible solution. So that can be done in paper form. It can also be done in digital media. So you can actually have it reside on your website as a self-assessment for clients to come in and take, depending on whatever product or services that you're selling, and that helps aid in discovery in a very efficient and impactful way, right? Because it's not you dictating the pace of discovery to the prospect. It's the prospect doing that self-discovery on their own.
And just to add, Ryan, the preparation is really key, because that's really going to uncover the opportunity during that whole process as a sales professional. So just being prepared for whatever direction that conversation goes when you're asking those guided questions too.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Jennifer, absolutely.
And yeah, just to jump in on that, right? I mean, obviously listening is key, and that's kind of a given for a sales professional. But if you have a handful of digital assets, whether it's an infographic or a specific video that can answer a specific question, or cover an objection, but you have those kind of at your disposal. And so when you hear the right question, it hits the light bulb in your head of, okay, yeah, they're dealing with this pain point, or they have this concern. Okay, well, I know I have this infographic that can explain that. And so you can have, a handful of digital assets available and only use a couple of them in one case, and then the next meeting you use the others. So I think just having that flexibility to have them at your fingertips to call on when it makes sense based on what you hear from the customer client is key.
Absolutely.
John, John Knicely, we have a question for you. What are the differences, if any, between digital media for marketing and those for the sales process?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Yeah, so for marketing, you're trying to get brand awareness and reach potential clients to drum up interest and potentially start that engagement of, okay, I've heard about, Hazel Oliver's company. Well, I saw her marketing material. I want to go look up more about her. And then that kind of begins the process. Whereas, sales digital assets need to be specific to that sales process. And so your target audience, even though it might be the same person, they're on a different point of their relationship with you. If they're in the sales process, they already know about you. They have a general idea of what you're doing. That's when you need to get more specific with your messaging in each digital asset. So it could be, an infographic, could be a video, could be showing a virtual reality tour of why your manufacturing process is the best, that sort of thing. But the marketing piece could be an overall brand messaging of who we are and let's drum up interest versus answering specific questions in the sales process.
Thanks, John. Okay, we have another one here. We have one for Hazel, actually. So many businesses are bringing their video teams in-house. What do you see as the upside and downside of this? And if they're bringing them in-house, how should they deal with the tug of war between marketing and sales?
So I think there's a pro and cons to either. So if you bring them in-house, your cost is going to be cheaper, right? But I do think you can lose a little bit of the creative kind of fresh take. So if you have a creative team in-house, video team, for instance, for a few years, they might just be churning out the same videos. Let's say you have a sales meeting each year, it might just be the same thing over and over again. So I think there's pros and cons to both, and there's solutions to both too. But I do think right now the trend is for people to bring it in-house. So I think there's more pros than cons in general. Pain points. I think we kind of talked about that already with Ryan and stuff about how sales and marketing are now working closer together than ever. So I think you really have to understand what roles everyone plays, but also understand that that's ever changing. So you really just need to make sure that the people you hire are really good at change, I think, is probably the main one. And understanding that depending on, I think maybe John, you said this was about, oh, now I completely blanked, but basically it was something like, oh, now I forgot. This happens sometimes, guys. I'm not a blonde anymore, but no, so yeah, so it's basically, I forgot what I was saying. So if someone else can pick it up, that would be great.
Well, it's funny. Most people don't like conflict, though they may tell you face to face that, oh, I'm fine with conflict. Most people avoid that. So when you talk about the pros and cons of bringing in a video crew, hey, Hazel, you're going down a perfect route for this, is that if you grab a bunch of people that are creative and you put them in an environment where you're going to be creating the same thing over and over, and you're not going to have external forces challenging you to raise the creative, then you're going to find yourself where you are going to be creating the same videos over and over again. So you may spend less money, but at what price for the creative? So I would invite those individuals that are bringing their video crews in-house, and fine to do that, but who are you adding to the mix that's going to continue to create conflict so that you create great things? Because you cannot have a breakthrough until you have a breakdown.
Yeah, I like what Hazel and John have just said is, now working for a marketing company, I think it's the conflict that creates the creativity, right? Because it spurs different lines of thinking. We all know the adage that if everybody's thinking the same, then nobody's thinking at all, right? And, I do, feel, and, of course, my background is in sales leadership, but I still think the maxim applies is that, if there's a level of, when you bring it in-house, there's a level of sameness that gradually occurs in any endeavor that you bring in-house. So occasionally you have to go outside, because in going outside, you're going outside the box to basically introduce new concepts and new lines of thinking in the organization, but also validate the existing lines of thinking.
Yeah, I like that for sure. I still though wonder then why people, is it just, maybe it's like just a cost thing why people are doing it so much? Because I do see it across the board, because I obviously work for myself, so I don't work for a company, but they're like, oh, we're building a video team, we're building a video team, we're building a video team. So I really liked I like the conflict thing. I'm going to use that again to explain.
But
I like that.
And Hazel, but I also think it's a function of control. I mean, it's like companies will complain about their creative groups all the time. We've all heard that. Oh, well, this person didn't give me exactly what I wanted. Well, again, that conflict is what creates that. So you've got to ask yourself a question: Are you bringing your crews in house for control, and is it the right kind of control? And I think you need to be in that perpetual dialogue.
Yeah, extremely well expressed. Marianne, I think you might be on mute. Oh, there you go.
Oh, no, here we go. Yeah, I have another question here. So, is there a role for a more casual video in the sales process versus professional video?
I think so. I think, not every video has to be the highest quality that John, Hazel, and I can provide. I mean, you can have strategic video potentially shot with an iPhone. You just need to make sure the messaging is on point and what you're trying to get across is clear. All of us, the way that we consume media and video these days, we've gotten more accustomed to some videos being less professional, some videos being that selfie video. So you just need to be careful. Just figure out what are you trying to get across, what message is it. Digital media could be a photo, could be a photo that you took of your team together, your plant, and you want to pull it up and say, this is the team, we have 15 people working for you, and that could be done potentially with an iPhone. So I would think there's opportunity, but you start with what message are you trying to get across, and how do you get it across effectively. I think that's your starting point.
Yeah, John, I love you say that, because I oftentimes remind people that we only remember really, really bad commercials or really, really good commercials, and that's an interesting phenomenon to think about. So if you've only got $600 versus $15,000, you may end up creating that really bad commercial that may end up becoming something that 20 years later, it's like, remember in St. Louis in the 1980s when the woman was on the carpet, it's like that becomes something that we remember.
Yeah, and I think if you are solving a pain point, so if you're giving them a solution, it can be, you at your desk with your iPhone, like, hey, I want to show you this thing I can do for you really quickly. Yeah, it doesn't have to be fancy, though. I do think if you're a big company and you're working with really, really successful businesses, you do need the really well produced, well polished videos to show like, hey, like, we're not amateurs, we know what we're doing. But if it's your client has one specific question, yeah, like, do you film with your iPhone? Just as long as you're solving their problem, you're good.
Yeah, I know when I sell, I use those, makeshift grassroots videos all the time with my iPhone. And I just make sure I'm always thinking, well, what's the result? What do I want to have come out of this? And make sure, you show up as yourself, your authentic self, because if you're using different words or you have this different kind of persona, they're going to pick up on that. So you got to just be yourself in the videos. But I use those kind of platforms all the time to either engage with the audience that I haven't spoken with in a while, get them interested in some different products that we have out there, or just kind of catch them up to speed what's going on. So I use that platform regularly.
If I could play, journalist for a second, Jennifer, I'm just curious if you could give us an example of a situation like that. Maybe not using names or the clients, of course, but what's an example that you've used that?
Well, for instance, for the book launch, we were trying to get a lot of publicity so we could get all those ribbons to be the U.S. bestseller and international bestseller. So I just did a makeshift video at my house, one take. I kind of shared the content about our launch date, what we were looking for to help support us, and boom, I think I had over like 3,000 views on my thread. You know how they have the ticker going up. So I think I have over 3,400 views just for that video alone. But it was very real, and it was just filmed right here where I am. I did one take. I kind of said what's going on, and we got a lot of activity. And then people were reaching out to me, so it was a conversation starter as well. So.
And I'll just throw in there just some, I guess, professional tips on how to make those videos better. Like if you look at just all the panelists and the way Jennifer's framed, the way I'm framed, that's a big thing. Some people do videos and this is what they see, or they're way far away. So if you're going to create something, know some basics. Just make sure there's decent amount of headroom, and then audio is the other key factor. If you're recording from your iPhone and you don't have an external microphone, you're going to need to be close to that phone for the audio to be good. Because again, when you play it back, listen for it, and if it's not totally audible or understandable, then it's going to be useless. So audio and just framing, lighting, you don't want to be in front of a window with the window behind you that washes you out. So just be aware of those things.
All right, I'll add something in here too. I'm going to approach it from a little bit different viewpoint. I'm not a video expert, but I am a sales expert, and I talk about two things. First, riffing on John's comments to Jennifer. One of the things that I do feel like is really great about self-shot videos is because they kind of tie to something that is just of preeminent importance in sales, which is trust, right? And so when you're shooting a video like that, you can see Jennifer come across, and you see her coming across very authentically, and that's very powerful. So I wanted to put that point forward. The second thing is I want to look at sales video, just because this seems like an opportune time to talk about it too, has a process. Because when you ask salespeople, sales professionals, what is it that you're doing in a sales meeting? They typically look at it as you're doing one of two things. You're either presenting or you're listening. And in a sales meeting, the best salespeople are actually doing more listening than they are presenting. So sales video allows you to incorporate obviously a bit of presentation while you're listening, but I would submit there's actually a third thing that takes place in a sales meeting that top performing salespeople really take advantage of, and that's observation. And that's what I really see the value of a sales video is in a sales meeting, is it allows the sales professional to step back and take a pause and observe. And observation is really powerful. It's, while they're looking at the sales video, you can be, the sales professional can be observing them. How are they reacting to key important, points of the video? Is it with apathy or is it with excitement? And that observation in and of itself is a form of discovery. And that's a way that I really feel like sales video can be powerful just from a process standpoint in a sales meeting.
We have another question here, Ryan. What is the digital platform beyond video that is starting to take off?
I might, kick this one over to Hazel and John. I mentioned discovery diagnostics. I think more companies are introducing that into their sales process. I think that people are also realizing that the website is not just for lead generation anymore. It's how can you constructively think about the website, so that it can aid in the sales process and aid in sales conversion. But beyond that, like I said, I'd kick that one over to John and Hazel.
When you talk about beyond video, I mean, how I interpret beyond video is that it doesn't include video. So my answer would be that Clubhouse, we've seen incredible success on Clubhouse and the conversations that I'm engaging in with leaders from around the country. Like this week, for example, I've got a PhD from St. Louis University that I'm engaging in a conversation about failure. Because again, the internet or social media starting really around 2006 and then really kicking into drive 2009, people want to know who they're dealing with before they know who they're dealing with. So same thing with dating. And so if they can see your work, if they can hear you speak, if they can, get a sense of the contribution that you're going to make, then people are like, okay, I resonate with that particular person. Because everything we're also talking about at the end of the day, people have to like you on one level, and it's very helpful to be likable. And just like any of us, we can't like everybody because everyone doesn't like us, and vice versa. But the more that we can get our messages out about how we're going to make a difference for people in a positive way. To circle back, Clubhouse for us right now is just amazing. I mean, we have thousands of people joining us on our chats.
Yeah, and it's a great way to communicate authenticity as well. So, Clubhouse is I'm glad that was really brought up in this conversation, because it's a new tool. People, just like Zoom was 9 months ago, people are trying to figure it out. It's, you're on the leading edge if you can start to figure out Clubhouse.
Well, and also Android is now active, and also people are a little bit tired of video. So let's just go back to kind of a radio format.
And I don't know
I was gonna
about you
say
guys, but I love those pre-recorded personalized voiceovers that you can send through text. I think that's great when you have a birthday or something really personalized where you wanted to get your voice across just to say hello. So I really like those pre-recorded texts.
I was gonna say podcasts too are huge right now. And then also, I mean, obviously big companies do it, but apps. So that's the other thing is, integrate your sales process into an application that you might already have, or make an app. So instead of them just going to your website, they can actually have an app. Because I think as much as companies do try to make their websites mobile friendly, an app can be a lot more mobile friendly, and you can integrate different kinds of media. You can integrate, blog posts or whatever video. I will say video, but you could have your podcast there, you could have your video there, you could have blog posts. I've wrote a few things down. You could have your VR 360 stuff there. Really the sky's the limit if you can, control what you're showing.
We have another question here. How can our website be used to help with sales conversion?
Well, I think a lot of that, tends to, really, start with the question is, what digital assets do I want to identify which contribute to what stage of the sales process, right? So, there's different stages of the process. There's, the initial getting, to meet you stage. There's the sales presentation stage. There's the proposal stage, and, each one of those could potentially have, collateral. I don't think that there's a hard and fast rule about what that collateral should be. I know that sell sheets are versatile across the sales process, for instance, but each company kind of has to identify, what is our sales process, step by step, what collateral supports that sales process step by step, and then what collateral can be converted to digital media on the website that can help fulfill the customer's buying journey. And I think, you know, you have to consider those things in order. If you just say, well, what can we throw up on the website? I just don't know that that's going to be a productive way for a company to go about it.
Sorry, I just muted myself again. Okay, we have another question here. Let's see. We tell stories that we feel generate a lot of interest with our prospects. How can we convert these stories into digital collateral that can help close more sales? Or is that even necessary?
It sounds like a John Knicely question.
John,
Yeah,
go for it.
Yeah, in fact, I was just going to share this example, and I'm going to send a link to everyone in the chat. I had a chance to study under the Microsoft Chief Storyteller and some of their approach, and I would just say this example I sent. You can probably check it out after. You can check it out now, but really go through it afterwards. And the key there is there's not one way to tell the story. In other words, they incorporate video, audio, and photos to tell that story. And so, yeah, if you're telling a great story currently to clients and you want to get it into a digital format, just think of the ways that will effectively tell that story. It could be a photo. It could be a 30-second video clip of your iPhone just showing the new building you have that can better serve your customers. So you can, this is where the creatives, us creatives, love to get creative and tell that story. But you can do this too. Just think through, how can I use everything at my disposal to effectively tell the story that we tell with clients? Maybe part of it is a customer testimonial that's in a written format. Maybe you got your iPhone out and said, hey, you told me that this was really helpful when I did this for you. Would you mind sharing that on my iPhone real quick, and incorporate that into content that can be put on your website and otherwise?
John makes a great point about there's no one way to tell a story. And everything that we do, we run through adult learning theory, is that adults need to be stimulated visually, auditorily, tactilely. So it's like, how do you incorporate all that? I mean, choose your own adventure is a way that you're actually engaging people to make a physical choice, either on the mouse or in where they're moving. Auditory, we talked about Clubhouse a moment ago. It doesn't always have to be video. It's like I isolate a particular sense. And then obviously visual can be interpreted in a myriad of ways.
So kind of going back a little bit about having a polished video and an unpolished video, and talking about story is, I really value too in sales process I've seen that are really off the cuff. So let's say before you go into the sales meeting, you got a voicemail from another client that really enjoyed what you did. But like, hey, while you're talking about it, be like, actually, here, I got a voicemail, from Dave 2 hours ago. Let me play it for you and see how we helped Dave out. And those things can actually still be planned, right? But even having, I see this with influencers online, they'll do a screen grab from someone who DM'd them and said, oh my gosh, you guys are so funny, you should do more of this, or oh my gosh, your ebook really helped me. They're in the sales process, they're doing it, but it seemed really genuine because it's actually, I don't know, it's the less scripted, the less unpolished. I actually find that really nice too.
Yeah, because it is genuine, right? It's, and that authenticity shows.
And I like that it's different. So if you can be creative and it kind of stands out, you're separating yourself from the other competition too. So I love that piece as well because it's different.
Yeah, Hazel, that's a good idea. So you're saying if a customer sends a text or email or something, you can just screen grab it and post it? Or do you need to get their permission? You need to get their permission. Okay, right.
I would ask, but if you're in a sales meeting and you're really good buddies with Dave now, right? Because you've worked with Dave for years. I'm sure Dave wouldn't mind if you were like, hey, here's a voicemail that Dave left me really quickly. It's just being super enthused about what I do. I think it just really depends. But yeah, I would definitely always, privacy is key for anything, for sure.
Well, yeah, and I think, Marianne, the question is, are you posting it? So that's the difference. Like, you're not just like what Hazel's talking about is, you're in a one-on-one conversation, not just putting it out there on LinkedIn or Instagram without their permission. So there's a big difference there. Whether you're posting it for everyone to see, you absolutely need permission. If it's off the cuff and there's just discretion there, I think.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking that would be new and different if we did get their permission. And I just like sometimes customers text or clients text and they could say, thank you so much. This made such a huge difference, blah, blah, blah. And you literally took a screen grab of a text and posted it. I mean, I don't know that I've seen anyone do that. So it could look authentic as long as you have their permission. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, and think about that from a digital standpoint. Maybe a customer says something to you that you didn't record. It wasn't in a voicemail. It was over the phone. Say, hey, that was really, thank you for that compliment. Would you mind sharing that in a voice text so I could put this out? Just be creative in that regard, because that can now be a digital asset for you to use, whether it's a screen grab of a text or video recording, voice recording.
yeah, I like the voice recording idea too. We have another question here. What organizations in St. Louis are doing a great job with digital and why? It's kind of a hard question. I guess
we kind
like
of have an
example-
etiquette here on the earning curve not to promote ourselves. So.
Oh, okay. Well,
it's but.
Right. All of these companies are doing a great job equally. We're not supposed to promote ourselves.
Well,
I don't know how to answer that. Go
Well, I
ahead.
think the question is probably even geared more towards like what company is utilizing it well. Like, I always just think of Anheuser-Busch. They just are oftentimes typically on the kind of cutting edge of making sure they are where their customers are with new digital media. So I think that's the key is, where is your ideal target client, and are you meeting them there with digital content that's going to keep that relationship going?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to express it, and I would, I'm gonna break the rule, I guess, which I've held hard and fast to. But it's the reason we brought this panel together is because everybody on this panel really are experts on digital media. And another one that that I might add as a specific company, would be Solstice. I think does really good work, especially on the brand videos and things like that. But I just, everybody in this discussion, all the panelists that are on this discussion, I'm learning just as much as I'm conveying information, and I think that's really cool. It's a hard one for us to answer, obviously. So, but I have ringing endorsements of everybody that's on this panel today. How about that? We'll just leave it at that.
That's perfect, Ryan. Good answer. And I'm glad you were here to answer it.
Oh my.
Okay, so let's see. We have like 7 minutes left. I'm thinking, why don't everybody give their closing thoughts? Just something you want to leave the audience with today, and then we'll close. Ryan, would you like to go first?
Yeah. It's so when you think of digital media and you think of collateral, it all ties back, when you're talking about helping you increase sales conversion, it all ties back to the sales process. And in sales, one another central tenet when it comes to sales meetings is that you come in prepared, and that you plan for spontaneity. Obviously spontaneity communicates that you're authentic, right? So how do you plan for spontaneity and not have it come across as inauthentic is a consideration. But when you're planning for spontaneity, you're planning for the right type of spontaneity. And that's the same thing that applies to your digital media and the collateral as well. you know, it's something that you have to plan thoughtfully if you're going to execute on it properly.
Very good. Jennifer, would you like to go?
Sure. Yeah, I would just say, you know, digital media, that's another tool that you can put in your toolbox. We talked about several different topics. So obviously, if you're able to utilize these and it enhances your sales, give it a try. I mean, and get creative and have fun with it, because this is a really cool and unique way to reach out to your clients and engage, and make sure you're listening, like John mentioned, and you're asking those defining questions that are going to help be the advocate to guide them down their buyer's journey. But pretty much what Ryan said, being prepared is key, being able to think on your feet. So you're being spontaneous in that sales cycle and you're bringing the right materials to the game to make that win is critical. And I would just say digital media is just another tool to use to talk to your clients. So utilize it.
Thank you, Jennifer. John Knicely?
Okay, yeah, sure. So for me, I always go back to messaging and who are you trying to reach first? Who are you trying to reach? Where are they at this point? So, you know, this whole panel is geared mainly toward the sales process. So think about who you're trying to reach and at what point, and then you can reverse engineer creative ways to come up with digital content. So think about the different sales meetings you've had or challenges your salespeople have experienced, and then think creatively, okay, well, what's a way that we could have better addressed this concern? And maybe it's an infographic. Maybe it's, okay, if we just create an infographic that shows first, we start here with our manufacturing process and this and this, and this is going to help you, you know. So that could be, it could be a highly produced video that's going to answer an objection that comes up repeatedly, or a question that comes up repeatedly, or it could be a situation where you met with a client last week and they, you know, something they said during the process made you think, oh, I could have just done this video or voice recording of myself that would have helped that stage of the sales process. Start with the end in mind as far as who you're reaching. That's what I mean by the end. Who are you reaching and what's their current situation, and what you're trying to reach them with.
Great advice. Hazel?
Yeah, I would say don't get lost in the creative too much. Like at the end of the day, you need to solve your problem. So just really focus on how to solve that problem, and then the creative will come. And then really just always adding value is the main thing, whether that be, you know, video, a clubhouse meeting, or, you know, a podcast, or on your website or blog post. It's really just adding value back to whoever is your audience.
Great, thank you. John Launius?
Hey, everybody. All right, so don't just scroll. So what I'm saying here is add social listening to your operating rhythm. It really is like reading your customers' minds. When you're actually looking at all of the social platforms of the groups you want to target or the groups you want to work with, you really do get a huge insight into what's missing in what they're doing. And how we then apply that is that we then run it through our filter. And I've said this before in past panels, is that we want to touch, move, and inspire our audience in the most powerful way. And to circle it back to some of the conversations, sometimes it is that $50 video, and sometimes it is that $15,000 video. But at the end of the day, how are you going to make the biggest difference to people? And that's been said by others. And every single person on this panel, I have the utmost respect for. I consider everybody on this panel my friend, and I'm so happy that we had a chance to interact today and to share and to contribute. Thank you all.
Thank you, John. And thank you all to all of you for being on here and giving your time today. We're going to go ahead and close. We hope that you've all found value in the panel today. We look forward to your feedback. Thank you to all of our sponsors, and please feel free to reach out to any of our panelists. Thank you to Enterprise Bank and Trust, Schmersahl Treloar, Spoke Marketing, St. Louis Makes, Carmody McDonald. And here is all of the email addresses for the panelists today. You can also connect with them on LinkedIn. It's been an honor to be your moderator, and please join us again in 2 weeks for another great panel where we will be discussing sexism in sales. So have a great day and we'll see you all next time. May 25th is the next one, 10 a.m. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone.